Okay, so session 3, developing Sabbath rhythms. So it's one thing if you're like, you come to this thing and it's like, okay, well, next week I'm going to really take a really great weekend. And then I checked it off and now I can go back. But that's not really a rhythm. That's not a practice. That just means, I don't know, you learned a little thing for a little bit. But you're starting to understand the bigger picture, the bigger why, or you've probably really kind of captured it by now. And we're just going to start fleshing it out even more. And as we progress through these next sessions, you're going to see that as you take Sabbath, your Sabbath starts to impact people around you. But first we need to get a holistic view, understand specifically related to renewal. And we touched on it already in the last session, but we're going to hammer it out a bit more. And what this renewal does, this weekly renewal. So we're going to go back to the Torah. We're going to go back to Exodus. So Exodus chapter 23, verse 12. Exodus 23, verse 12 says, 6 days you shall do your work, but on the 7th day you shall rest. Now this is an interesting part that's added. That your ox and your donkey may have a rest. And this also becomes a problem in our modern era because, I don't know, raise your hand if you have an ox or a donkey. Maybe some of you do. No? So maybe you could say that your cat and your dog may have a rest. Maybe your cat or dog or your guinea pig would like to spend the day with you, but you're working all the time. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's the thing. But for this, it's really talking about that, an ox and a dog, were work animals, and God's design for all creation, not just us, it's holistic. And if you can imagine, out of all the ancient peoples, the animals that belonged to the Israelites, man, they had it sweet. For one day a week, for Jewish ox and donkeys, they got to just enjoy the fields for 24 hours. In the rest of the ancient world, this was crazy. In the rest of the ancient world, it was work, 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 work. And you work your animals till they die. So this is interesting, that God's heart is that our Sabbath affects the things we own. Now, I don't know, I don't even know how to give a comparison. I guess if you drive for a living, you're going to give your vehicle a break and less on maintenance. I don't know. We don't really have a comparison. But the principle's the same, is that the things that are attached to you, you give them a break too. And then it goes on. It says this, your ox and your donkey may have rest, and the son of your servant woman. Isn't that interesting? The son of your servant woman. Now you're like, well, I don't have a servant woman, and she doesn't have a son, or I don't have servants or slaves. This doesn't apply to me. It's true. Now, in the ancient world, again, if you were a servant or a slave of Israel, of Jewish people, you had it made in the shade because you got a day off every week. It was God's law. No slave or servant got a day off, and your family. So imagine if a servant woman had a son. His mom in another culture in the ancient world, she worked until she died. And you saw her maybe in the mornings or evenings, and maybe you came along with her and helped work. But that was the family of slaves and servants. Except if you happen to be slave or servant to the Jewish people, to Israel, you would give your slave or servant, they got a whole day to enjoy their family. Which was, for us, it's like, oh, of course they would. But remember, we live in this time that Christianity has given us all this benefit. I was just having a conversation in the back. The fact that we have a 7-day week and a 5-day work week, we can really thank Jesus for that. That's Christianity impacting our culture. Our whole system has been set up that we earn money 5 days a week. We do homework 1 day a week so that we can rest for one. Our whole system is set up and designed based on Christianity's impact on the world. So if God didn't design all this. And if Christianity had not become the mass faith in the Western world, we wouldn't live in this standing. And so this points to, this law is way back in the beginning. God's instruction to his people benefited anyone that was attached to them and anything. So then it goes on to any alien. Now, we're not talking about from Mars. We're talking about, this is a biblical word for foreigner or an immigrant. So there were people that either were traveling through or chose to belong to the people of Israel, even though they were not of the Jewish race. And they were to experience it. And so imagine you're a traveler and you happen to come upon that, and all of a sudden this would be new to you. It's like, oh, well, it's Sabbath. What do you mean it's Sabbath? Like, shouldn't you be preparing for it? No. Our people, we just spend 24 hours that we worship God, we enjoy each other's company, we put all our animals out to pasture. Again, it's this beautiful picture of eternity. And for the traveler, for the alien among the land, it would be like, what is this place? This is heaven on earth. It was unheard of in the ancient world. It's only common to us that this whole idea of Sunday or Saturday, it's only that way because we live in this fulfilled time. And all of it is that they may be refreshed. The day off refreshes us and everything attached to us. When you choose to check out, everything attached to you happens. If you happen, now this is very important, if you happen to own your own business and you put into a practice and you say, no, we shut it down on this day. No one works. And we're like, well, I want to work. Tough luck. In this business, in this company, no one works on this day. We shut it down. And it may seem like, wow, this is very harsh. Well, then it becomes a practice they know, or maybe it's in the contract when you hire them, and they're looking at their employment contract. There will be no work done between this and this. And be like, well, that's crazy. There's a company in the United States, maybe you've heard of it, called Chick-fil-A. Love the Chick-fil-A. And there's a man by the name of True Cathy who started the company, and he has great chicken. That's the way it was, and it got him popular. But he had this thing that basically the company shuts down for 24 hours on Sunday. Well, it started getting popular just because it's really good food. But what really made Chick-fil-A was its staff. Time after time after time, they would have people, that, whether they're CEOs or their counter people or in their back at the grill, they were having the happiest people ever. Because everything attached to Truett Cathy, by rule in his company, shut her down for 24 hours. And even now, if you go to the United States and you're trying to get, and it's Sunday and you roll up to Chick-fil-A, it is closed. They're all closed. No one, no calls, no emails, no nothing. It is now they're massive. Thousands upon thousands of employees. I don't know how many, different shops they have. But this principle, it's been holistic, and he took this very seriously. And his staff benefit, everyone benefits, except those who want a chicken sandwich after church. Tough luck. You're going to have to go somewhere else. Okay? So everything we're connected to is refreshed. There was a study done that linked Sabbath keeping with health, and it observed that people who practice Sabbath. So it did a study on, like, what do people do? What happens? When a person chooses not to work, what did they do instead? Because, what happens? Well, these are the top things that people who practice Sabbath do. They spend their day attending religious services. Okay, makes sense. They go to church. They also, the next thing they do is they enjoy quality time with family and friends. It's the next thing they do. They take time for rest and restoration. And one of the key things they do is they mentally disengage from daily stressors. So this, if they were to package this study and look at everything, these are the main things that happen. So if you think about it, imagine once a week you attended a religious service, you spent quality time with friends and family, and you disengage from daily stressors. And what would that look like? If you have 52 weeks in a year, if you did that 52 times, at the end of the year, not only how would you be impacted, What about the people around you? What about your friends and family? Because they would start putting that into practice too, because it reverberates. Everything, your children, how would they be impacted to know that every week I have mom or dad's absolute full 100% attention? I have all of them because they've given all of themselves to Jesus. And I'm a part of that mix. And for you pet lovers out there, your cat and your dog will thank you as well. Right? It's the rhythm. So Sabbath rest has a net positive on your life and everyone around you. It's not just for you. It's contagious. So now let's look at this as a gift then. If we know that holistically it's going to be a net positive for you and the people around you, then we can look at it. If I were to give you something that was a net positive on you and your family and friends, you would say that's a gift. And so let's look at it that way. Sabbath, what if Sabbath was not just given for us, but it was a gift? Every week, God came to you, right? He woke you up at midnight on Saturday night. I have a gift for you. You don't have to do anything for 24 hours. Here you go. Cleanse. You'd be like, oh, thank you, Jesus. I'm not waking up till noon. Whatever it is. And if you looked at it at midnight, you get this gift. This gift is waiting on your bedside. Okay? In Mark 2, back to the New Testament, verses 27 and 28, we already mentioned this a little bit, but Jesus is addressing the Sabbath because Sabbath can become a law again. It can become a rule. And even in Christian circles, maybe the church you grew up in, there's lots of churches today, and the preacher will get up there and say, you better not work on Sunday or, God's going to make you pay. That kind of, turn and burn, Bible thumping preaching. And it is so theologically inaccurate and so against why Jesus came. And you're missing too that he chose to rest. We choose to rest. There's no demand. It's a law, but it's a law for our own good. And yet Jesus comes and he's changing. He's fulfilling the law. And he's bringing in this concept of grace. And he's coming back to the concept, God has demanded this for your own good, not just to follow rules. But you have Pharisees and Sadducees that they're making all sorts of sub-rules, and they're making sure on the Sabbath that people aren't doing anything. If they caught you cleaning up around your house or around your business on Sabbath, like you were put to task. And Jesus is seeing how the religious leaders, they've just manipulated this beautiful thing that God's given to his people for Sabbath. And so he's coming against us and he says this, the Sabbath was made for man. The Sabbath was made for human beings. Because they were looking at it like, God wants you to take your Sabbath. He's going to be mad at you. And she's like, you missed it. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. God gave you this as a gift. He lays it on your pillow every week, right? And then he says this thing, so the Son of Man, a biblical term of Jesus talking about himself, so the Son of Man is Lord, right? This is one of these phrases where he's claiming deity, right? He's really rattling those religious leaders at this point. And he says, Lord, even of the Sabbath. Now we see that's like even of the Sabbath, okay, that's fine. But this concept, we understand the first century and the power that the religious leaders are supposed to put on the people. We know from Scripture, he started to heal people on the Sabbath on purpose. So he's doing work. He's doing his miraculous work. And imagine, the religious leaders are so lost. They're missing the fact that God came to earth and did a miracle. Like, well, you should have waited till, well, I guess it's Saturday for them. You should have waited till Sunday. It's crazy. And he's saying he's the Lord of the Sabbath, which points back to that whole concept that our presence in Jesus and his presence in us, that communion with Jesus, that is Sabbath. That is eternity. When he comes back, or we pass on, we move into heaven. And one of the beautiful things is we enter into Jesus' presence and we enter into this eternal Sabbath. And so if we have this day, we say at the beginning, we wake up and we say, Jesus, thank you for this day of rest, and it is all yours. And we enter into that. And this is the thing. He is Lord. God has given him this Sabbath, and he interacts in it. And so Sabbath rest is a weekly gift from Jesus. And if you can imagine an actual present, imagine, it's your birthday, but every single week it's your birthday. And whatever day you take your day of rest, if it's Sunday or not, whatever, our family does Friday or Saturday. So whatever it is, doesn't matter the day. But if you imagine, you wake up to really look at that, to say, open your eyes and just imagine you're opening a gift. And it's the most treasured thing in Western Canadian culture. And let's say you've slept 6 of those 24 hours already. Okay? And it's this gift, and it's 18 hours laid in your lap. The most valued thing in Canada. Time. And you look at your treasure. I have 18 hours. I can do whatever I want because God gave this to me. Jesus, thank you for these 18 hours. What should we do? And what he's not going to say is an 18-hour buck stuff. I guarantee you. Huh. That's what the Pharisees and Sadducees probably would have said. That's not what Jesus said. He might say, hey, let's spend some time in the Word. Or let's talk for a little bit. He might say that. That's a good thing. And to really look at it, you just say, I've given this gift, and don't let anything get in my money. It should be cherished. It's a treasure every week. And you should guard it with your life. Because in it, remember, it's holistic. Like in that, as you're holding it, your family and good friends are in that too. Like your pets, right, are in that. All the things you love are in that. And you need to hold it tight, all the things that bring you joy. And you get to enjoy them.